I have a bunch of updates for you on Ukraine. This is going to be, get ready, a thick segment, a lot to go through. And before getting to a disaster that's building with Putin and Trump's reaction to it, Zelensky's reaction to it, let me show you something that Trump said, because I'm starting to pick up on, I'm curious if you all are noticing this as well. When Trump now talks about the negotiations with Putin, you can kind of see in his face and hear in his voice that he's starting to doubt the big proclamations he's made. Delusional ones, but what he's been saying now for years. And it's gone so far to the point where he's saying this.
Understating the complexity of all this. But as a candidate, you said you would have this war settled in 24 hours.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. I would. What I really mean is I'd like to get it settled. And
oh really? Oh really? So, producer Cold, before we get into the important updates, did put together this to remind us of the absurdity of him now backing off. You can pick up on that he's a little less confident, that he's the genius negotiator he told us. What he used to say on the campaign trail.
You would have this war settled in 24 hours.
well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that. I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours. Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
I'll end that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
It can be negotiated, I think, within 24 hours. Guarantee that this war will end immediately.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
I will have it solved in 24 hours with Zelenskyy and with Putin. And there's a very easy negotiation to take place, but I don't want to tell you what it is because then I can't use that negotiation. It'll never work.
Well, I was being a little bit sarcastic when I said that.
So, you know those messages that I've read out to you where people write in the show and they'll say, Trump, he's awesome, he's going to... And one of the things they would cite is, you know, it's so wrong of you to say that Trump's lying about his ability to solve this because he is going to solve it. It's going to be great. It's going to be perfect. You're going to look so stupid. You're going to look so stupid because he's going to solve it and you're going to have to admit that you were wrong. Jaden, that's a quote, right? I think that was a quote from one of our commenters. And now he's MAGA? Anybody? No, I meant, see, I speak in parables, sort of. So I say stuff, and usually I mean the opposite, because that's what a parable is. Oh my goodness. Now this self-doubt that I'm picking up on with him, it wasn't just in that moment where now he's saying, that was sarcasm. I was being silly, because who doesn't joke about the matters of global consequence like a war? Oh, also, you would use your statement about how you were going to end it to say that Biden was deranged and demented, and that's why he couldn't do anything, because if you were about it, then you would have solved it, but Biden can't do it, but you would do it 24 hours. And so, what was I saying? That totally distracted me. But, similarly, he said that you maybe should try we're going to look into putting disinfectant inside the body and a UV light all over the body. And then he said that was sarcastic. Hey, maybe we stop with the sarcasm then. That's obviously a lie. He wasn't thinking it was sarcastic, but man, it's really upsetting. But here during his meeting with the Secretary General, he also is starting to talk about, and maybe Russia won't agree to the ceasefire, like I said, and that would be sad.
Well, would like to see a ceasefire from Russia. And we have, not been working in the dark. We've been discussing with Ukraine land and pieces of land that would be kept and lost and all of the other elements of a final agreement. There's a power plant involved, a very big power plant involved. Who's going to get the power plant and who's going to get this and that? And so, it's not an easy process. But
really? Because you said it. I think you literally used the word easy to describe it whenever Biden was president.
Phase one is the ceasefire. A lot of the individual subjects have been discussed, though. We've been discussing concepts of land because you don't want to waste time with the ceasefire if if it's not going to mean anything. So we're saying, look, this is what you can get, this is what you can't get. They discussed NATO and being in NATO, and everybody knows what the answer to that is. They've known that answer for 40 years, in all fairness. So a lot of the details of a final agreement have actually been discussed. Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world.
So for the first time, he went from it'll be 24 hours to it'll be before I become president while I'm president-elect to, all right, it'll be soon to, if it doesn't happen, that'll be disappointing. So he's been telling us that it's Ukraine preventing peace, but now Russia's the one who's not yet agreed to the ceasefire. But I want to tell you about, if they do agree to it, what could be happening, sort of Trump getting played here. But first, one other moment where you hear Trump's tone shift.
This thing would have gone on for a long time.
Breaking a deadlock. It was crucial.
Yeah, we broke a deadlock. Yeah. We did break a deadlock. I hope it's meaningful.
Yeah.
I hope it's meaningful. But Trump, I thought you were going to call him and say, guys, settle. If you say it was good, guys, settle. It's going to say yes. You're going to say, I'm going to give you this latte. You're going to give this latte. It's going to say, it's going to be healthy. It's going to be good. I believed you.
Gotta settle. I would tell Zelenskyy, you gotta settle. I would tell one, you're gonna load up with money. I'd tell the other, you're not gonna get any money.
All right, so you get that. Here is Sky News breaking down Putin's reaction, and this is the disaster I was referencing, that could be a game we've seen before. And if Trump falls for it, we're talking about generational damage. So here's this analyst, and I'll respond.
Still has to eliminate these so-called root causes, in many ways means we're back to square one. Nothing has really changed, because these are lines he's been saying for months, ever since setting out Russia's kind of position on a peace deal last June. So he's talking about peace, saying he wants a ceasefire, but still showing no signs of making concessions or compromises whatsoever. And there were reports this morning from the Reuters news agency citing sources familiar with the Russian position here in Moscow that they have given the American officials 3 demands that they need in order to agree to this 30-day plan for a truce. And those are to have a cast-iron guarantee that Ukraine will never join NATO, for there never to be any European peacekeeping troops from NATO forces in Ukraine in the future as part of a security guarantee for Ukraine, and also that there is international recognition that Crimea and those 4 territories in eastern Ukraine that Russia holds the majority of are recognized as Russian territory. So his maximalist position, even if he didn't articulate everything in that press conference, I think has remained the same.
Exactly. Which is before even signing a broader agreement, just to agree to the ceasefire, we want these ridiculous concessions. What do they really mean? We want Ukraine to give us the territory we've taken. Okay. But we all assumed that maybe territorial concessions were going to have to be a part of a long-standing agreement if that could come along with security guarantees. But also, they can't have any security guarantees. It can't come from NATO. It can't come from European forces. It can't come from the United States. They can't have any security. So what are they asking for? We want you to give us what we've taken by force through a murderous invasion. And then we want you to completely weaken yourself for any future aggression. And what will we do in return? We'll give Trump our word. Come on. Like we did the last time. And then we invaded. I mean, not with Trump, but, like they gave the United States the word. Zelenskyy responded, right now, we have all heard from Russia Putin's highly predictable and manipulative words in response to the idea of a ceasefire on the front lines. At this moment, he is in fact preparing to reject it. Of course, Putin is afraid to tell President Trump directly that he wants to continue this war and keep killing Ukrainians. That's why in Moscow, they're surrounding the ceasefire idea with such precautions that it either fails or gets dragged out for as long as possible. Yeah, Putin does this often. He doesn't say no outright, but he drags things out and makes reasonable solutions impossible. We see this as yet another round of Russian manipulation. And that's what Putin's doing. He's saying, yeah, of course, Donald, you made a great ceasefire and you're so strong and we would love it. But just one little thing. Ukraine has to completely prepare themselves to be fully invaded at our choosing. Good? So that you, Trump, and then maybe Putin even agrees in his own head or behind the closed door with Trump. This is speculative. Hey, I won't do any more aggression for the rest of your presidency, as long as you'll make sure they don't have any security guarantees. So you get the win, and then I get the win. This is what we've been warning about for so long. Excuse me. There was a U.S. proposal for an unconditional ceasefire. Do you know what unconditional means? Putin? And he's asking for all of the conditions. For the temporary ceasefire, we're supposed to be crafting the agreement. But he's saying, give us all the concessions first, and then we'll craft an agreement. In the air, at the sea, and on the front lines, we in Ukraine accepted this proposal. We have heard from the American side that there is readiness to organize monitoring and verification. This is absolutely feasible with American and European capabilities. And during the ceasefire, to prepare answers to all questions about long-term security and a real lasting peace, and put a plan to end the war on the table. Ukraine's ready to work as quickly and constructively as possible. Now, he essentially goes on to explain, it's Russia complicating this, obviously, so clearly. Ukraine unconditionally said, yes, we agree to the ceasefire. Boom. To give a second to then craft the deal. And it's Putin who's going, we would also love to, but first you have to give us everything so that we can invade further whenever we'd like. Again, that's the summarization of the demands that you heard recited there. Now, before going further, here is Trump saying Ukraine shouldn't have picked a fight with Russia.
Russia has a large group of Ukrainian soldiers, as we speak, surrounded and in grave danger. They've been able to...
This has been debunked.
...to surround them. They're in grave danger. Biden should have never let this war happen. First of all, you don't...
You are the president now!
I want to pick on somebody that's a lot larger than you, even with the money. There's a lot of money that we gave them and a lot of equipment that we make.
Quote, unquote, you don't want to pick on somebody that's larger than you. Can someone, is there a single Trump supporter out there that can explain that to me? Kate from Kharkiv says, Ukraine just exists. Ukrainians literally just sleeping in their beds at 4 a.m. Russia invades, bombs, kills, destroys, rapes, lots, kidnaps. And Trump's response is, you don't want to pick on somebody that's a lot larger than you. Is it definitionally picking on someone to defend yourself? No, obviously not. Now, I've referenced history and how with the Minsk agreements, there is essentially a cycle that has played out. And this video from the New York Times titled 20 Years of Putin Playing the West in 3 minutes. I do encourage you to watch the full 3 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just play it for you. It documents just through sound bites and video the game that Putin's been playing. And because we constantly view the world through 2-year, 1 year, 4-year lenses, we're barreling towards making this mistake again.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
I found it to be very straightforward and trustworthy. I was able to get a sense of his soul. I wouldn't have invited him to my ranch if I didn't trust him.
The part that Russia has played in the international community since the 11th of September has been remarkable. I mean, we have cooperation today that would have been really unthinkable just a short time ago.
Und der sehr freundschaftlichen Zusammenarbeit zwischen Russland und Deutschland, die vermutlich nie so gut war, wie sie jetzt ist Vertrauen.
I am confident that this new level of cooperation between NATO's members and Russia
will now change the world and for the better.
Поэтому предлагаю с этого момента штаб-квартиру НАТО переименовать в Дом Советов. Думаю, что это неплохое предложение.
I will declare that to be a joke.
Do I trust him? Yeah, I trust him.
Russian heavy guns were firing at Georgian positions inside Georgia.
Buildings are burning from the last airstrike, and people are warning that the Russian Air Force may soon be back.
I brought with me today a big delegation of British business, all with an interest in expanding their trade with Russia.
We seek a significant and sensible approach to economic development across our continent, and to that end will now be closely interconnected for decades to come.
J'ai trouvé un homme très au fait de ses dossiers, très calme, très intelligent.
I am aware of the extraordinary work that you've done on behalf of the Russian people.
Breaking news from Ukraine. Overnight, armed men seized control of 2 government buildings as Putin announces he's sending troops.
Many of Putin's critics have mysteriously become ill or died.
Apparent vicious political assassination of one of President Vladimir Putin's most outspoken critics.
A new report about Russian interference in the presidential election. Next, a look at how strong the evidence is that points to the Putin government.
Former Russian spy is in a critical condition in hospital in
Investigators suspect the Kremlin could be behind the incident in Salisbury on Sunday.
He says great things about me. I'm going to say great things about him. He's been a leader far more than our president has been a leader.
Wouldn't it be great if we actually got along with Russia? Am I wrong in saying that? Wouldn't it be great? I believe that President Putin really feels, and he feels strongly, that he did not meddle in our election.
He's not going into Ukraine, okay? Just so you understand. He's not going to go into Ukraine.
So for our podcast listeners, some of the context will be missed for you because the imagery that they're putting up on screen of the contradictions of, Putin's call for peace at different moments and acting like he could be a global partner, and then following that up with military invasions, mass death, and political assassinations and interference. And how he's, I say this not in a positive way, but the advantage of a regime like Putin's is he can play a game on a longer timetable. When you have, even though this is the much better system of government, when you have the democratic system as ours is, that you are constantly switching out leaders, then it's almost always in their short-term political advantage to go ahead and just path of least resistance it. And that's what we've seen. And that gives just enough for each leader to say, okay, I dealt with this crisis and we had to make some big concessions, but what are you going to do? And the next one comes in, the same game's played. And we can't fall into that again. And so learning from history should inform us about how to handle the present. And it seems Trump is so ready not to. Then a reporter asking Keir Starmer here a question that should really depress us about the state of America.
Likely scenario where Vladimir Putin doesn't come to his senses, where he continues putting unreasonable demands on any ceasefire, on any negotiated settlement, perhaps doesn't even come to the table at all. And in that scenario, we can't be certain that Donald Trump is going to side with us and not with him. What's plan B?
Well, firstly, we need to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position for whatever comes next, which has been my consistent position, whether that's around the table, which is what I hope it will be in negotiations, or if that doesn't come to pass. Secondly, on the US and
yeah, and that's an important point too. Just remember that by Trump, maliciously or through misunderstanding, attacking Ukraine like he has, it then puts them in a worse position for leverage, for negotiations, and for peace this long-standing. And the question is so heartbreaking to think about our allies, a reporter having to say, we don't know if in the case of continued impossible demands from Putin, if Trump will turn around and say, you know what, Ukraine, you should have to accept those. You should have to accept the kneecapping of your future defense of yourself. Essentially making inevitable future war as opposed to long-standing peace would be the demands that Putin is making. And if Trump turns, the reporter asks, we don't know if the US president will side with Putin. He might side with Putin on this. So what are we going to do? That is a profoundly frightening question. Okay, quick moment of comedic relief through absurdity of JD Vance. Here is JD saying this about his wife while she's standing behind him.
States, and I'm so proud to have her back by my side. And here's the thing, because the cameras are all on, anything that I say, no matter how crazy, Usha has to smile and laugh and celebrate it.
Yeah, you know, no matter what, how crazy I say, she has to smile, even though right now she's not doing much of a smile. She seems to be a little bit more of a wince with a performative smile there. But listen, there's a lot of online stories about me, Usha, that I did things unspeakable to couches. I just want to say, since you have to react positively, it's all true, Usha. It's all true. But smile along because you're on camera. No, kidding. That story's not true, but it's a funny one to reference for sure. He is charisma. Like, imagine if charisma were a person. Okay, that's him, except you took charisma behind the gas station and so brutally beat it, and then you put it through a wood chipper, and then you put that into a smoothie maker, and then you threw that away altogether and got a completely different thing. That's JD Vance. Okay. Wow, that was troubling. Then you have this from Trump's speech.
President Putin a lot about it. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. I won't tell you what the consequence was. I won't tell you what but if he believed even 5% of what I said, then he would say, I'm not going to do it. And I think he did. But we had a good relationship, and we had a professional relationship, and he has respect for this country.
He has respect for this country. You know, when I think of people who respect the United States and its values, Putin, that's maybe the first person who comes to mind. What are you talking about, Donald? There are your updates on that, a really tenuous and troubling situation. If you appreciate this show and my delivery of that information, it's not good information. You're not going to like the information, but my delivery of it, I'd appreciate you clicking the subscribe button and the join button below.